Hi guys, welcome back for another lesson. This is Wayne R, and I hope I inspired you enough from the first lesson, just talking about what type of guitar to purchase, into buying a guitar or borrowing one at the very least. And today we're going to learn a couple of simple chords. So first of all, I'm just going to talk about the parts on the guitar, because I think it's important to learn the parts and know what everything is and what everything does. And it also sounds better when you go into a music shop and if something goes wrong, it's always cooler saying, oh, one of the tuning pegs has come loose, or rather than say, oh, the twisty thing on the end. Because there's nothing better than what a salesperson in a music shop loves somebody going in who doesn't know what they're on about at all. They thrive off that. So it's always good to go in and at least know what you're talking about. So there's two types of guitar, obviously an acoustic and an electric, so I'll just go over the different parts very, very quickly. So first of all, on an acoustic guitar we've got the body, okay? That's all the main bit, the body, and that obviously goes around the back as well, okay? Then we've got the headstock. Now that's obviously the front and the back. That bit's called the headstock. That bit's called the neck. So if you like, it's like looking at almost like a giraffe, I suppose, or a funny looking person. So we've got the head, the neck and the body. Okay, so if we turn the guitar around, these are called tuning pegs on an acoustic guitar. They're obviously what we're going to be tuning the strings with. It's apparent if you look, you see what you can work out what strings go to where, so they're obviously the tuning pegs. This bit here is called the nut, this little white thing here. Now that spaces your strings. That obviously, keeps all the strings the right distance apart, so that's quite an essential bit of the guitar. The metal strips that go down are called the frets, and obviously we're going to be playing as fingers in between the frets. That's where so that space will be fret 1, fret 2, and as a whole that is called the fretboard. Okay, so that's the fretboard. So back up here we've said the body. The hole is called the sound hole. Now on an acoustic guitar that's obviously, because it's a hollow body, that's where the sound's obviously projected from, that's the sound hole. This bit is called the bridge. It's different, this is quite a fancy one on this guitar, almost looks like a little moustache if you like. So that bit's called the bridge, the wooden section. The white strip is called the saddle. That's what your strings actually sit on, that differs what, the height of your strings away from the fretboard. And then these little things here, if you ever have to change any strings, it's a little plug about so long, it's called a string plug. That's what holds all your strings in place. And that's pretty much everything on an acoustic guitar. So on an electric guitar, it's pretty much the same thing. There's a few different things. So we tend to call the tuning pegs on an electric guitar machine heads, because they're like a bit of it. There's a bit more to them on an electric guitar. They're like a mechanism, although it's the same thing. We've still got the headstock, we've got the nuts, the fretboard. But when we go up this end, obviously the body's the same, the bridge is the same, but we've got obviously where we're going to be plugging as jack lead in. That's called a jack socket. Okay, so that will be a jack socket. Okay, that's a jack socket. You got, obviously it says on what these are, a volume and tone. Now these, quite important, these are called pickups, okay, and this is a pickup selector. So obviously by switching this, if we put it all the way up, especially if you've got a model like this, a Stratocaster, all the way up, that will be just that pickup working. If we move it down one, so that will be that pickup and the middle pickup, so that's the neck pickup and the middle pickup. So move it directly in the middle, that will be just the middle pickup working. Move it down one again, so that's the middle pickup and the bridge pickup. Okay, all the way down, that will be just the bridge pickup, and it gives different tones. If you're playing lead guitar stuff, people tend to have it on the bridge pickup. It's a bit more treble and it tends to cut through a bit more. But rhythm, we go from anything from the neck pickup to the middle pickup. That's for strumming chords and rhythm and everything. So that's pretty much it on an electric guitar. They're the only different things. So you've got your pickups and a pickup selector, and obviously your jack socket, what you're going to be plugging your jack lead into. So let's get cracking and just get you away with a couple of chords then. So if you buy a book or there's plenty of stuff online or about, and they're called chord boxes, because what I'm going to show you today is just a couple of really simple chords to play and get you going. The first thing we're going to do though is tell you the notes of the strings. Now there's going to be another lesson about tuning. We talked about tuners in the previous lesson, you know. So if you've got a tuner sorted, we need to, you know, obviously tune your guitar up. Now, if you can get someone to do that for you just for now, or even take it into a music shop and just get them to tune your guitar, but there is going to be a lesson just talking about tuning, because you can actually tune your guitar, the strings to each other as well, which is another way that you can do it. But the notes of the strings, starting, now this is called the bottom E. That's always, even though that one to, you know, when you're beginning will be the bottom one, that's actually the bottom string. It's called the bottom E string. So the thin E string is always your top string, because it's higher sound, you know, it's a higher pitch than that's obviously a lower pitch. So that's called the low E, that's called the high. So the bottom one and the high one are actually both E notes. Now the notes of the strings are E, starting on the bottom E, next string A, D, next string G, next string B, and then we're on the top E again, which is the top string. Now obviously I know it's not easy to remember that, so I think it's always good if you can use a little rhyme. I use a couple of these, there's loads, you know, there's loads online or in books or anything. But the two I use the most are either Eddie and Dave got blues early, you know, so that's obviously the first letters, you know, with a note to the string. So Eddie and Dave got blues early, that's starting on the bottom E. Or another one that the kids seem to love, and it's always easy to remember, elephants and donkeys grow big ears. Now that's easy, you know, as for an adult as well, really easy to remember. So elephants and donkeys grow big ears. Okay, so I'm now going to show you how to play your first chord. Now this is the first chord I normally show everybody, which is an E minor. Now if everyone can see that, because I've got some chord cards, I was going to write these down, but I think that's pretty clear. So what we're looking at there, so that the thick line at the top is actually the nut. Now that's the white bit at the end of the guitar that we talked about. The silver lines that go across are the frets. So obviously that space there is fret 1, that is fret 2, fret 3 and fret 4. So what we're seeing there is the first 4 frets on the guitar. Okay, the lines that go vertical are obviously your strings. So it's almost like looking at your guitar like that. Okay, so that's the nut. And the line, that will be your first E, which will be that one, or your bottom E. The next string is an A, D, G, B, E, and that's you know, the string at the bottom would be the top E string. Okay, so this is telling us that we want nothing in the first fret, but when we get into the second fret, now the numbers and the dots are actually, this is telling you where to put your fingers now, and the numbers are basically your second finger and your third finger. And I'm going to tell you where to put your fingers now. So we're looking at the second fret. Now that is the second space on your guitar, which is there. And these notes have got to be played not on top of the frets, because you get horrible buzzy noise. It's got to be played right in the middle. And the middle, where you actually play the note, is called inlays. They're the inlays where you play the notes and play everything on the guitar in between the frets. So to play this first chord, which is an E minor, so we want nothing in the first fret. And if we just look at the fingering on a guitar, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So your little finger, or your little pinky, as I call it, would always be your fourth finger. Okay. To get this E minor, we're looking at the second fret, and we want our second finger on the second fret on the A string. Okay. And the third finger is going to go on the string underneath on the D string. So both on the second fret. Now when you play these chords, you've really got to get them on the tips of your fingers. So the position of your hand, and your thumb's just got to be made, not touching the string at the top, but just sort of sitting so it's resting at the top. But we've also got to leave a gap at the bottom as well, so we're not touching the bottom neck and catching that top E string. So you've got to sort of get your wrist a little bit further underneath and really try and best and, you know, really try and stand your fingers up on the tips. It's a little bit awkward at first, but with a little bit of practice, because if you have your fingers lying down, what's going to happen then? You're going to be muting the other strings. So it's important that you get your fingers right on the tippy toes, as I say. So, and on this one, we're going to be strumming all the strings open. So with strumming, so holding a pick first of all, we're going to be holding it between the first 2 fingers and the thumb. And for this, because there's all different thicknesses of picks, you're going to want quite a bendy pick. This is because there's all different sizes. This one's a 0.73 or a 0.70 is a good pick to use when you're starting out. So when we strum the strings, we're not going to strum straight down. We're going to strum in a little diagonal across the sound hole, or if you're on an electric guitar, across the pickups. Okay. So this sort of motion. And we're holding the pick about halfway down, not for dear life, but just so you got, you know, a good firm grip on the pick. And that's an E minor. Obviously we've got the 2 fingers on in the position that we talked about. That's an E minor. Now if it sounds a little bit, you know, it's not quite sounding right, which is very common with beginners, you know, you're not going to get this straight away. A good thing to do is, because you've got to have patience of a saint for this, is to play the chord and just play all the strings one by one and make sure all them strings are ringing out nice and clear. And if you get one string that's, you know, you can sort of get to that problem straight away. You can isolate that problem by, obviously, I'm not pressing my second finger on hard enough, or maybe my second finger's lying down and catching the string below it. So play all them strings one by one and just make sure, you know, you're getting all them strings clear. Right, just time for one more chord then. The next chord is an A sus2, and it's virtually the same chord. Now all we do, we move both fingers down one string. So now the second finger is on the 2nd fret on the D string, and the 3rd finger is on the 2nd fret on the G string. So we just basically moved all the fingers down one string. Only this time, the bottom E string becomes what we call shut. We don't play that bottom E string. We're just basically playing the bottom 5 strings now. And this is an A sus2 chord. So it's same again, a little diagonal with the strumming. That's an A sus2 chord. Okay, so we've got the E minor, so that we'd be moving the 2 fingers back up again. That's your E minor chord. And then moving all the fingers down and playing the bottom 5 will be the A sus2.